Hey guys, Chicky to Maine, Deboo.com with a Deboo.com forecast update. This forecast update effective around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday, August 14th, 2017. And lots to talk about today, guys. I hope you will tune in for the complete broadcast. Start you off over here near the Yucatan Peninsula, the Gulf of Honduras. This pattern is known to produce tropical cyclones. Not saying that something is going to develop. It's something that we are watching. We started watching it yesterday morning or the day before, but we've got a tropical wave that's moving through here, through the Yucatan Peninsula with the center axis of rotation right in here towards the Gulf of Honduras. We also have this front now that's pushing down, and you know, early in the season, the Western Caribbean Gulf of Mexico is typically where we see early seasonal development. For those who have been following our forecast since the beginning of the season, you know we've talked about two types of pattern early in the season: the hook pattern that's known to produce tropical cyclones, and the round the corner pattern that's also known to produce tropical cyclones. Now, environmental conditions are not favorable at the moment, but it is something that we are keeping an eye on. Over here towards the right north portion of your screen, we now have Tropical Storm GERT forecast to become a hurricane. This will be the second hurricane of the season if the forecast verifies. We had Franklin down in here in the Bay of Campeche a little over a week ago as the first hurricane, and we now have 91L Invest out here towards the East Atlantic coming up in the main development region, with the possibility of the third hurricane of the season, with what looks to be Harvey in the next 72 to 96 hours approaching the Eastern Caribbean. Switch you over to some satellite loops now, back over here in the Western Caribbean. As you can see, again, tropical wave now moving through here, through the Yucatan Peninsula, Gulf of Honduras, and you can see some slight spinning here in the Gulf of Honduras. This is the breeding ground for tropical cyclones early on in the season, and because we've got a tropical wave, we're approaching the peak of season, it's time to watch everything. And when you watch and look at flow, you see how this kind of dives down in here like this, and then you get this southerly return here because of the approaching front. And then you'll also notice through the Yucatan Channel, notice how this southeast flow starts to come through the Yucatan Channel. So a lot of times as the front starts to dive in, and then you get an area of spin that can start to lift up and then get into the Gulf of Mexico, and then boom, you've got tropical development. Now, the other thing that I'll point out is that this could be an early indicator for what's coming for 91L Invest out of the central Atlantic, because the latest run of the European model now takes what is 91L Invest and moves it into the Gulf of Mexico as a possible hurricane. That's one run of many. We'll show you that here in just a few moments. Switch you over to the 850 millibar map. This shows vorticity spin, and you can see that there's a slight vorticity spin here off the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Here is the backside of the vorticity spin that's located here, and it just may not be showing up enough in the 850 in this map. And then again, there's some more vorticity spin down here in the Southern Caribbean. Going back, like we said, early seasonal development, that round the corner pattern area spin develops here, rounds the Nicaragua-Honduran border into the Gulf of Honduras, and then up in here towards the Gulf of Mexico. You can see how this pattern can sometimes produce tropical cyclones. Again, Tropical Storm GERT, forecast to be Hurricane GERT, is now approaching the latitude 30 line. The swells are now just starting to affect the buoys. We'll show you that in the buoy breakdown here in just a few moments. Switch you back over now to some satellite imagery of what is Tropical Storm GERT. GERT is forecast to move up towards the north and then off towards the northeast. Now, the idea was thinking that as this system begins to strengthen, we may see a little northeast wraparound in here. In fact, Gray's Reef is showing some swell directional change out of the east-northeast in here this morning, only about 2 foot. The Canaveral buoy is holding about 3. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll show you the buoys here in just a few moments, but it does look like that as the system begins to strengthen and then pull off, that more of a northwest-west swell will be created from this system, but have no fear, 91L Invest is inbound. That looks like it's going to give us an extended period of rideable surf coming in, going into the weekend and next week. Looking at the 24-hour wind wave forecast out of the National Hurricane Center, showing seas increasing with GERT up into the 20 feet range. Possibly higher as the system intensifies into a hurricane as it moves past the Outer Banks. Looking at the 96-hour swell forecast, you can see that the southerly side, because the storm is so heavily weighted on the east side, southerly flow now into the south-facing beaches from the mid-Atlantic on up through Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And then you can see here that westerly swell component generated by that wrap as the system starts to tighten up, going off this way. Bottom of the image here, 12 to 13 second southeast swell starting to happen now, coming out, and this is 96 hours coming out just like this. So again, extended period, East Coast surfers, rideable surf coming. Buoy update. This is the East Canaveral buoy. East Canaveral buoy showing 3 feet east-southeast at about 9 seconds. The Northeast Bahama buoy looks to have maxed yesterday at about 7 feet. We're still not seeing any swell energy or enough swell energy hit the East Canaveral buoy. It looks like it's all being directed towards the Outer Banks and points north. Switch you over to Gray's Reef now, and here's where Gray's Reef is at 2 feet. Swell direction now out of the east-northeast versus east-southeast earlier, and then on up into the South Hatteras buoy. Here's where the swell is starting from GERT is starting to affect, and that'll start to affect the some East Coast beaches later on this afternoon. South Hatteras buoy now approaching 4 to 5 feet, 10 seconds out of the east-southeast, and then the East Hatteras buoy 5 feet out of the south-southeast. Switch you over to the latest out of the windtv.com, and then this is current. This is the European model. This is going to walk you through the extended forecast. We have no problem showing you a 10-day forecast. Just keep in mind that 10 days, lots can change. So here's GERT here, east of Florida, and you can see that the system is heavily weighted on this side with southerly flow. So that's why we're talking about a surf alert for mid-Atlantic beaches, south-facing beaches up through New England, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. But look at this strong east-northeast fetch that is setting up, aimed at the islands. Will advance the model for you into Tuesday. You'll see that GERT lifts up towards the Outer Banks, and again, there's no strong flow on this side. Southwest flow into the system, southwest flow into the North Atlantic. That's going to kill the swell. But then look, again, still strong flow coming in here with 91L starting to tighten up. Move you into Wednesday. We should have Tropical Storm Harvey by Wednesday or Thursday, but what's to take note here is if you were to draw an imaginary line from Hispaniola through Puerto Rico, you'll see that the fetch above that line, wide open, all of this is heading our way. Move you into Thursday. Again, increased east-southeast and east fetch coming in from what should be Tropical Storm Harvey. On Friday going into the weekend, here comes surf alert, guys. Offshore winds, system gets closer here, and we've got this long fetch coming in here from the East Atlantic through the top of what is likely to become Tropical Storm Harvey, possibly Hurricane Harvey. Offshore winds, that's going into this weekend, take you into Saturday, and here's where things start to get a little iffy for South Florida. Sunday, European model now puts this over Hispaniola. And Hispaniola, for those who are not aware, Hispaniola is known as a storm killer because of the higher elevation. So other environmental factors start to work in once you get into there. So we lose confidence in the model at this particular point. But then also look, here comes possible Irma setting up. Again, long east, northeast to southeast. Swell setting up into Monday. European model takes 91L invest, likely Harvey over central Cuba, into the Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday, and in the center of the Gulf by Wednesday, just above the Yucatan Channel. And then again, because of what's likely to become Irma, strong east-southeast fetch as this system lifts up. That's all we got for you for now. Stay tuned for our social feeds for more buoy updates coming over the next 24 to 48 hours and the latest info on 91L Invest. Thanks for following.